your natural reaction is like, really now? Huh? I'll give you some examples in real estate where we get this stuff wrong. It's when we show up and throw up without true understanding of the other person's situations. It's, let me give you the 5,000 reasons why you should join my team. Let me explain to you why a downline rev share model is the greatest thing in the world and my life is so much better because. Let me share with you why here's what's happening, Mr. Buyer, right now with the rates is that you should, marry the house and date the rate, and that now's the perfect time for everybody to be able to buy a house. What we're doing is creating friction. Because is your team the best team in the world to join? The answer is maybe, followed by depends. Is now the right time to buy a house? The answer is maybe, it depends. Is now the right time for somebody to sell? The answer is maybe, it depends, right? That's why experts are needed. And what makes somebody as an expert is not somebody who shows up and throws up their expertise. It's somebody who is brave enough to understand the other person's context. In every conversation, you, my friends, have content that you'd like to introduce, right? Content about your service offering, content about your remuneration plan, content about how you help the seller to be able to get the best price, content about how you can support a buyer with your market expertise. If you show up to a conversation with your content before you've earned their context, all you did is make a noisy situation noisier. So the early part of influence is always, and by always, I mean always, to do the work to understand their context. I've been training salespeople somewhere like my entire professional life, trained over 2 million professionals in over 800 different industries. Often get asked to explain what my definition of selling is. And to me, my dictionary definition of what selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. What that means is you should never, ever invite somebody to take an action or do something unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank, blank, and blank. I thought I'd share with you a quick story that has nothing to do with real estate that might help you just understand how strategic curiosity can really amplify your conversion rates in some of the critical areas of your business. One of the things that I did in a former life was help turn around broken retail stores for a big furniture retail group in the UK called DFS. These are stores that used to turn over £12 million a year and drop back to 7. I had to get them back to heyday figures remarkably quickly. What I couldn't do was drive more traffic. What I could do, though, is I could affect the average transaction value of the people that were coming through the stores, and I could affect the conversion rate of the people that were showing up. Everywhere we went, we got fantastic results. Where did it start? It started with bosses saying to me, Phil, can you help our teams do a better job of overcoming the objections when we're introducing our core profit drivers in the business? Now, in the furniture industry, core profit drivers was 1, fabric protection on couches, and 2, a little upholstered box, an ottoman, a footstool, something you could use to be able to use for storage or to put your feet up. More margin in those 2 things than there often was in the rest of the order. I'll tell you the result we achieved before I explain how we got there. We moved average transaction value in stores from around £800 per customer to over £1,500 per customer. We also increased conversion rates of maybes from around 60% conversion rate to over 95% choosing to be able to convert on the day. How do we go about being able to do that? Well, we developed what's called a question tree. And this is the concept that I'd like to introduce to you folks today, because this is like nothing you've heard before in an objection handling process in the world of real estate. So bosses said to me, Phil, can you help the guys get better at overcoming objections? I said, sure, I can. Wouldn't it just make more sense that we didn't get the objection in the first place? They said, I've got no idea what you mean. I said, well, instead of trying to put out the fire, wouldn't it make more sense that if I found the guy that was going to light the fire and stole the matchbox from his coat pocket before he left the house in the morning? They said, I've still got no idea what you mean. I said, well, answer me this. What are the most common objections we face when introducing these products and services? Any idea? What do you think the most common reason or excuse was as to why people would decide to not have their fabric professionally sealed so it wouldn't stain? Why would people say they didn't want that? Hit me that in the chat. Okay. Fair enough for us to be able to say to the common belief here is that it's a price-based objection. That isn't what people would say. What more often than not they'd say is a version of, we're dead careful, we do not eat and drink on our furniture. Having never been to their house and never seen their behaviors, could I say, well, of course you do, everybody does. I mean, take a look around here live, right? We've got 100 people here live in this Zoom room right now. Who here has never had a bite to eat, a glass of wine, a can of soda while sat on the couch? Who's never done that in their entire existence? The answer is like nobody. Yet the trouble is, if a customer says something, it must be true. Whereas if you say it, it might not be. So if the customer says they don't eat and drink on their furniture, I have to accept their truth as the truth. What about footstools? What do you think the big reason was as to why people would say that they didn't want a footstool? Hit me that in the chat. Why would people say, I have no need for that product? Terry's saying not going to use it, don't see the value, don't put their feet up. A couple of you have got this nailed, right? The most common answer was some version of, we not got the space. Having never seen their home, could I say, of course you've got the space. Everybody has the space. No, if a customer says something, it must be true. If you say it might not be. So the job is to get whatever you would look to be seen as true to come out the mouth of the other person, not to come out of your mouth. So I went to work not on embellishing the features and benefits of footstools, not embellishing the features and benefits of why fabric protection was a good idea. I learned early on in my career that success in selling has nothing to do with embellishing the option of yes. It has everything to do with destroying the option of no. See, right now, the biggest reason that you're not getting the growth in your career you'd like isn't the people that are saying, heck no, I never want to do business with you. It's the people saying, heck, maybe, kind of, possibly, perhaps. These are the people we're looking to try and influence. So what I started to do was to write my first question tree, and I'll share with you what a question tree looked like in the furniture industry, so we can perhaps jam a little later on what a question tree could look like in the world of real estate. And the first question I wrote was this, was apart from yourself, who will be using the furniture? People would say me, the wife, the kids, the dog. I'd follow it with a leading question whilst nodding. I'd say what? And a spot of entertaining. What did everybody say to the and a spot of entertaining question? People were like, sure, yeah. Like nobody admits to having no friends. I said, is this going in your best room or your everyday room? Do I mind which one they pick? Best room needs to continually look its best. Everyday room is going to take a hammering. I win both ways. I say, your last piece of furniture, how long did you keep that for? It didn't matter whether they said 3 years, 5 years, or 15 years. I'd follow with the same question. I'd say, I guess you're looking for this to last the same time or longer. What did everybody say? They said, yes, sure. So they told me they want it to last a long time. They've told me it's going in the everyday room or the best room. And they told me they're often entertaining. Am I in good shape to recommend fabric protection? Pretty good shape. Trouble is, I'm not a fan of good shape. I'm a fan of something slightly higher than that. I'm a fan of a thing called certainty. So I figured if I could write one more question, I could take one more step towards certainty. And I learned that if I preface a direct ask or a direct statement with the words, I bet you're a bit like me, I can get just about anybody to agree to just about anything, providing I'm reasonable. I bet you're a bit like me, get home from work, enjoy nothing more than pouring yourself a nice glass of red, sat down on the couch watching something on Netflix. Yeah, sure. I bet your household's just like mine, never finds time for a meal at the table as a family. Too often it's a tray on your lap in front of the box. People are like, yeah, that's reasonable. Even if not true, they'd still accept it's reasonable in that moment to avoid the confrontation and the conflict. They're like, yeah, that works. Still got this footstool to deal with, right? And I'm scared that they're going to say they haven't got the space. So I come straight for it. This best room of yours, how big is your room? And they tell me it's 5 by 11, it's 15 by 17, it's 32 by 23. Doesn't matter what they say. I say, wow, that's a fair size room. How big is a fair size room? Looks like a fair size, right? that label becomes helpful for me in terms of the future expectation of what we're looking for them to be able to believe. I say to them, you're buying a 3-seater couch and a 2-seater couch. How are you going to lay it out in the space? They try to tell me. I say, can you draw it for me? Put a piece of paper in front of them, put some crayons down. And what every human being on the planet would do is they'd make the room like giant and they'd make the furniture teeny. So as they're doing the diagram, they're creating me space. I'm like, this is cool. As they're doing the diagram, I'm asking further questions. I'm like, what do you do when you're entertaining for extra chairs? They say, well, we're pulling chairs through from the dining space. Some people are sat on the floor. Some people are sat on each other's laps. I'm like, wow, that kind of party. What I'd then do is I'd say, okay, so what do you do for extra storage? They say, we've never got enough room for that. Am I in good shape to recommend a footstool? Pretty good shape, right? Trouble is, I'm not a fan of good shape. I'm a fan of something slightly higher than that. I'm a fan of a thing called certainty. And I learned that if I just ask one more question, I can collect another piece of evidence that gives me a stronger recommendation. Probably one of the best questions that I learned to be able to craft, still very few people understand how good it was. The question I wrote was, particularly bearing in mind this was in the United Kingdom, almost everybody celebrated Christmas in some way, shape, or form. And the question that I would ask was, Christmas time, where does the tree go? Why was that question useful for me? Because I just found the home for the footstool for 11 months of the year, didn't I? Here's what it allowed me to be able to say. It allowed me to be able to say, because of the fact that you said, that you're often entertaining and you want this to last a long time, for that reason, we'd recommend that you have your fabric professionally sealed at the factory. That way, when you spill something on it, it won't stain, it will lift straight off. Oh, and remember the fact that you said that when you're entertaining, you often struggle for extra chairs. What most people do is they grab themselves a footstool. Can use it as an extra chair, can also use it for storage. And if you're wondering where it sits underneath your feet. Try and tell me you've not got space. Try and tell me you don't eat and drink on your furniture. Bordering on impossible. I'll share with you the kind of outcomes that this achieved for us. His fabric protection was running at around 60% before we started the question trees. Where did it rise to? Hit me with a guess in the chat. What do we think? Only about 95%. No, not everybody. Only about 95%. Footstools were running at around 25% through stores at the time. Where did it rise to? Only about 45%. I share those numbers with you because nothing works with all of the people all of the time. What you're looking for is the things that work with more of the people more of the time. And then the compound effect of that over a sustained period of time is the difference between a good year and a great year. What is that we're talking about? We're talking about developing strategic curiosity to collect you evidence so that what you can do is make stronger recommendations. The game we are looking to be able to play is what needs to be true for that to be true. What that means is that let's take something simple like what needs to be true if somebody's going to buy a house in this market. Well, what needs to be true is that their existing housing situation is not working for them. What else needs to be true? They need to be sold on the idea of home ownership as a concept. What else needs to be true? Well, they need to be in a financial means in order to be able to purchase a home through both down payment and affordability through lending, if that's what's required. What else needs to be true? Well, they probably want to be sure of their future living circumstances for at least 2, 3, 4 years, right? As a minimum, if they're going to make a commitment to be able to buy in this given market. What else needs to be true is they believe that their future is going to be better than their past. That would give some confidence, right, in buying right now, if they believe that they're going to be making more money in the future than they are making right now. So I don't know what happened here screen-wise, but was that somebody's screen?
There we go. We got you.
I'm not sure what happened, but we got it.
That was cool, right? That was cool. But here's what we're looking to be able to say is if you want people to make decisions with more confidence, think about the evidence that needs to be true for them to feel confident about a decision, and then craft questions to collect that evidence, not just questions about their circumstances. When it comes to people making decisions, they want to feel 3 things. 1 is smart, 2 is capable, and 3 is good. Nothing more than that. Smart means that I've got enough information to make a decision. Capable is nobody forced me to do it. Good is at the end of it, I'm not going to feel stupid. That's all people need to make a decision right now. Think about a recruiting scenario with smart, capable, and good. I want to feel smart enough to be able to make a decision to come across to an alternative team or brokerage. That means there needs to be enough sort of logical evidence that says that this is a good idea. Capable is, well, yeah, that will work. Yeah, I can do that. Nobody forced me. But also within capable is capable of leaving my existing relationship without feeling bad about it, because the end result is I want to feel good. If I'm going to feel bad, i.e. embarrassed or disappointed or frustrated about letting down an existing relationship, I will never leave that existing relationship if I cannot feel good about it, cannot feel at peace about it. So we'll talk some more about that in the Q&A, but can you see how sometimes we have to be strategically curious for a long period of time before we jump to any form of recommendations? Because there's a body of evidence to collect. And success in selling is all about destroying the option of no, not embellishing the option of yes. Stay there for long enough, we dance towards this ingredient of empathy. Empathy is like a buzzword right now, yet still too few people understand what the word really means. And the best definition I've ever heard for the word empathy comes from a speaker author friend of mine by the name of Jon Acuff. And Jon Acuff describes empathy as to care about what the people you care about. I can't do better than that, so I'm going to borrow what John lays down. Our goal in every conversation is to be relatable. Nothing more than relatable. There's a button inside the mind of every decision maker on the planet. It's a button that I call the show me that you know me button. The second you trigger the show me that you know me button, no longer is it you versus them, it's you and them versus it. If you can find some form of common enemy that sits outside of the transaction, outside of the decision, then now what you can do is write towards that outcome together. Let's take this very simple in a real estate transaction point of view. Do you know that nobody wants to buy a house, right? Nobody. They want to buy a house because nobody wants to sell a house. They want to sell a house because. If you do not know the because, you are not being empathetic. If you are talking about the value of the house or the market, you are not being empathetic. You are in the business of changing circumstances if you are not aware of the circumstances that are changing and how your work impacts those changing circumstances. You are not being empathetic. Also be aware of the least influential word on the planet. Would you like to know the least influential word on the planet? It is the word I. Now go to your sent messages and your sent emails after our time here together and see how often you start an email with, I was just, I was hoping, I was looking. And realize who the star of your show is. Because too often the star of your show is you, and we wonder why we're deemed as pushy when all of our conversations are self-centered. So what do we look to do to demonstrate that we're more empathetic? You just swap eyes for yous. I know last time that we spoke, you mentioned that what you were thinking about doing was blank, blank, and blank. What's happened since? It's significantly easier to respond to than I was just checking in. How are you? So we're looking to be more empathetic. Nobody wants to buy a house. They want to buy a house because. Nobody wants to sell a house. They want to sell a house because. If you do not know the because, you're a product pusher. You're a market commentator. You're an analyst of all things local real estate, but you're not helping them in their unique set of circumstances. And if you want to truly differentiate your service versus somebody else, hit the show me that you know me button. Let's give some consideration to this in a recruitment conversation. The hardest part of an experienced agent deciding to join your team is the conversation with their existing brokerage or team. And it's quite often the elephant in the room that never gets talked about. Here's the easiest way to use curiosity and empathy to be able to deal with that situation is you go right back in time. You're strategically curious. You ask questions like, so how did you go about getting started in real estate in the first place? And they tell you, right? And you say, well, why did you think real estate was the right career? And what's everybody going to say when you say, why do you think real estate was the right career? Hit me that in the chat. Why is somebody going to say they started a career in real estate? Right? Donna's here. She's got it. Freedom, time flexibility, great potential for earnings, money. And if you then asked them, so how's that working out for you? After they gave you that guaranteed answer, what do you think most of them are going to say? Well, like, you know, that's the kind of answer you're going to get next, right? So you then say, how did you go about choosing the brokerage that you work with in the first place? What's almost everybody going to say? Convenience, ease, knew somebody, just right place, right time. And you're going to prove to them that they didn't make a particularly calculated decision about how they chose their team or brokerage on day one, correct? Remarkably predictable as we play this out. And we say, well, what 3 things do you like best about working with those guys? And they'll share. And you say, if there was one thing you could change, what would the one thing be? And they'll tell you that too. And now you just started to find an angle. Now you just started to put yourself into a position where you can position yourself and your unique value prop versus where they're currently at. But what's important is for you to punctuate their past actions with saying that you made the right decision at the time. So it sounds to me that you joining your local RE/MAX office was the right decision at the time. And they're like, yeah, it was. Because if I can help people feel good about the fact that they can make the right decision at the time, well, guess what they can do today? They can make the right decision this time. But if I make people feel bad about the fact that they made a bad decision in the past, what are they likely to do today? They're going to ponder like crazy on how hard this decision is to be able to make today. That's what they're going to do. Whereas if I can empower them to help them realize that they are good decision makers, they've made good decisions in the past, and they did this because they wanted more time freedom and they wanted to be able to make more money, and that this has provided them with a career that's been okay but could be better, and that they've achieved a portion of their success in this existing journey. What am I then going to do is I'm going to stay in this position of curiosity and empathy for some time, and I'm going to ask questions like, so how important is it to you that you find that long-term financial freedom and success in real estate? And what are they going to say? They're going to say pretty darn important. And I'm going to say, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, how important? With 10 being like this needs to happen for your family, and 1 being it's a cute idea. And they're going to say, well, like, yeah, it's a 10. So I'm going to say, well, how certain are you can achieve those outcomes where you're currently at? And they're going to say, well, not that certain. So what do I now do? I now become courageous. And I'm not talking about like jump out of an airplane courage or go to war courage or climb a mountain courage. I'm talking about the courage to just ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't get, you don't receive, you don't know. Our success is in direct correlation to the quantity of quality asks that we make in our life. But if you run out just asking for the things that you want too often, too early, you're pushy, you're obnoxious, you're self-serving. But if you do the work to be curious enough to understand their context, to be empathetic, to be truly relatable, and then you're courageous enough to be able to ask people to take action, well, now what we can do is drive action and results. So how would I be courageous at this given point? Well, what would I be doing? I'd be asking really bold, courageous questions that are as simple as, well, what do you understand about how people are winning with EXP right now? What are they going to say? They're either going to do your job for you, or they're going to say, not much. You're going to say, well, would it help if I walked you through an alternative option that could perhaps be a better fit for you based on where you're currently at with your career? And they're going to say, would you, please? And they're going to invite you to deliver a powerful presentation about how collaborating and being part of your family could drive increased results. So you don't have to EXP all over people. So what you can do by alternative is that you can be pulley and not pushy for the right people. But is your model a good model for somebody who wants to hang up in the world of real estate in the next 6 months? Probably not. Is your business a good idea for somebody to go through significant amounts of change if they only really want to do 1 to 2 transactions a year, and that their current broker is the best man at their wedding and the godfather to their kids, and that they are, the best of friends that hang out every weekend? Is that the hill you want to die on? Or would it be better to be able to point your efforts elsewhere? The point is when you're strategically curious for long enough, when you're empathetic enough to be able to understand somebody's unique situation, you only present to people that fit your criteria of wanting to be the people that you want to work with. And this is the type of business that if you don't spend your time hanging out with the people you want to hang out with, it gets pretty exhausting pretty quickly. And you do get to choose your customers and your business partners. So my invitation to all of you really is, coming into every conversation, how do you stay curious for long enough to understand somebody else's context, to then demonstrate empathy to be relatable, hit the show me that you know me button, and then have the courage to invite other people to make big, bold actions? And that is a never-ending triangle. The mistake I make in that contextual model, though, is this is an equilateral triangle, right? All 3 sides are the same length, which presents the assumption that you spend 1/3 of your time being curious, and 1/3 of your time being empathetic, and 1/3 of your time being courageous. Don't work like that in the real world. More often than not, it's like a acute angled right angle triangle, right? Where you're strategically curious for a long period of time, and then that drops down to be a point of empathy. And then you've got this courageous journey back towards your next step. And then when you get them back towards their next step, what do you now need to do? You need a goal set and plan and lead them. So you're curious about their objectives, their goals, their ambition. Now you demonstrate empathy because you know their why behind their what. And what you're then doing is you're courageously inviting them to take new actions and adopt new behaviors to drive new results. And then they achieve those results. And what do? We do the same again. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So is that model helpful to you folks when we're thinking about the kind of conversations we're going into? Because it's also safe. It allows you to be able to say things like, because of the fact that you said that you're committed to a long-term success in real estate, and that your existing brokerage has provided you great support up until this point, but doesn't give you the foresight towards believing that you've got the growth to be able to lean into, and that you feel like you're missing out on blank, blank, and blank. For those reasons, what I'd love to invite you to is I'd love to invite you to one of our team meetings so you can just see how things work by alternative. I'm like, you do that for me? You're like, yeah, sure. And then bring them on a journey. What we're trying to be able to do when you have something that's shiny and valuable is to say, come with me, not look at me. And if people are happy to follow your lead, then they're happy to follow the decision you're asking them to make. If you're trying to tell them you're more attractive than their existing scenario, then they'll double down and tell you how pretty their existing relationship is. And you find yourself in what I call a my dad's better than your dad argument. Ever find that with a broker to broker discussion of who's got the best opportunity? Instead, what we're looking to be able to do is to show massive interest into the other people. So Renee, Elizabeth, I don't know if that gave some of the insights we were looking for based on today's discussion, but I thought it'd be nice to share some information that isn't in the book and some thinking framework behind it. And hopefully when you read exactly what to say or exactly what to say for real estate, and that you dig in a little deeper, is you'll start to realize that what the words are tools to allow you to be more strategically curious. Or the preface to a sequence of words is an example of demonstrating that you have empathy. Or the preface to a big ask is allowing you to be courageous to invite somebody to take action with a little less friction than you would have been with your normal or your existing set of word tracks.
Bill, it's so impactful. And I noticed that Becky in chat dropped in when you were referring to the show me that we know me button.
Yeah.
Becky said that hits hard. And we're service providers in the real estate industry. I mean, even with eXp Realty, service is one of our core values. How do we continue to reframe our mindset on what we think about service when oftentimes service is directly correlated to a customer asks a question and we show up and give them exactly what they're asking for, which can be a trap to provide information too early before we can truly hit the show me that you know me button.
It's kind of ironic actually here, because you're asking me a direct question, asking for a direct answer, and my direct answer is to not give a direct answer. Because we have to earn context first, or we have to create movement. I'll give you some examples of where creating movement is a good idea. Back in a former career of mine I was consulting to a large telecommunications industry, and big telco company was going through the change of moving their business customers away from analog technology and towards VoIP, so internet-based phone lines. To the small business community, this was a tremendous change. There was a lot of fear attached towards the fact that you're going to play with my phone lines, because if you remember pre-internet, your phone ringing was the way that you knew that your business still had a pulse. So small businesses were pretty darn concerned at this change. This telco said, we're going to help our customers move through this transition promptly and quickly and easily. We're going to give them the utmost confidence that this is going to go smoothly. We're going to send our engineers out to be able to reassure our customers that this is a good idea. Engineers would go out to customers, and the engineers would be asked a question by their customers, a very direct, very fair question to ask. The customers would ask the engineer, so how does this VoIP technology work? Engineer thinks, I've waited my whole life for somebody to ask me this question. What do? They show up and throw up all of the technical jargon around how VoIP technology works by comparison to analog, and kept every single one of those customers feeling remarkably confused. Telco company invites me in and says, Phil, we're not getting the adoption rate of new technology we're looking for. We're getting all this pushback at the point of installation, point of change. Can you help us overcome the objections we face at this point? I said, sure, I can. Wouldn't it make more sense we didn't get the objection in the first place? So they got no idea what you mean. I said, well, where's the point of friction? They say, well, our customers ask us, how does this work? I say, and what do? They say, we tell them. And then we get objection, 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 objection. I said, well, we need to rewrite the script. They said, well, how long is that going to take? I said, I think I can do it now. They said, well, how much are you going to charge us? And I told them, and they said, that's a lot of money. I said, well, you're losing a lot of time and money right now by not having this right. And they said, yeah, you're right. They said, how long will it take you to be able to rewrite the scripts? I said, like I said, we can do it right now. They said, what do you mean right now? I said, well, grab your pen handy. I want you to write this down. I said, when the customer asks, how does this work? You train your engineers to say, great. Now that was the complete answer. That was the full script. Now with hundreds of engineers going across an entire country, receiving the question, how does this work? And then delivering the answer, great. Do you know what most customers said to the answer, great? So that'll do for me. I'm good with that. No further friction required. So sometimes what I'm saying is a short, precise answer is enough information for people to make a decision to be able to move forward. So when somebody says to you, is now a good time to sell? You say, sure. That could be a complete answer. Hey, is now a good time to buy? Yeah, sure. Not, here's 1,000 reasons why, that creates confusion and chaos, unless they ask for more. The job is to give enough information to make a decision. What many of us do is give too much information, and it makes us sales prevention officers. That's what we end up doing. Furthering on to Renee's question, though, is if there is a time where people are looking for further clarification, you demonstrate your expertise not by what you know, but by what you know about them. Which means that before you ever jump to a conclusion, a great habit or behavior is to ask 3 more questions to check you're as sure as you thought you were sure. That way, they reach certainty before you offer certainty, which means you're in agreement. If you offer certainty of your opinion for what somebody else should do before they got there themselves, you'll almost always live in friction. So let them get to the position of certainty first, which often means, without being evasive, asking, tell me more based questions without using the words tell me. So if you're looking to garner more context for a scenario, swap your tell me statements for help me statements. So instead of saying, tell me why you want to be a homeowner, is, well, help me understand why homeownership is important to you. And they'll go on their long rambling story about wanting to be able to control their costs over a period of time, get to a point where they can reduce their overhead. They'll share the story about how, they got kicked out of a rental at some point in the past, or a friend or a family member got kicked out of a rental in the past, and they don't like living with that amount of uncertainty in their life. So you can then ask, well, how important is it to you that you become a homeowner before the end of the year? And they're like, well, I guess it's pretty darn important. You say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it? And they say, well, look, it's a 10. So you say, well, what are the consequences of you not making that happen this year? They'd be like, well, that'd be devastating. We'd be paying rent for another 12 months. We'd have to stay in a place that's too small. So you say, well, why was it you were thinking about potentially not buying? They're like, well, I don't know. I just read something in the press that now might not be the right time. I said, you're right. It's not the right time for everybody, but do you think it's the right time for you guys? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess so. Onward. But slowing the process down to ask more questions is how you speed the outcomes up. When you try to push people towards outcomes, then resistance goes up. When you stay committed to helping people make smart decisions, then all of a sudden those decisions can be made quicker and with more ease, as opposed to you projecting opinions. Long answer to a short question, Renee, but hope that was helpful.
The asking additional 3 questions in nearly every scenario, in real estate business, at home, in your marriage, with your kids, across the board, is for me a newer skill set, and yet yielding such great results with deeper relationships. So I love that you shared that. Elizabeth, do you think that we are coming up on 12 minutes before we wrap? We
Right.
should start opening it up to some questions in chat for Mr. Phil M. Jones.
I think so. We already have a couple great questions in there, Phil. So there's 2 of them right now. One's from Marcus and one's from Becky. Do you see those?
Yep. So what do I see? I see Becky saying, how does this apply this skill in the digital age? Well, it applies in all conversational moments, of which social media is without question a conversational tool. I think the mistake that often people make on social is you try to get from visibility of a post to decision making. With the complexity of the decisions that we're asking people to make in things like home transactions or who they decide to be able to work with, your goal is to be curious in your posting, to start conversations that you can then move off of social media. So to move to DMs, to move to Zoom conversations, to move to in-person meetings. So what would I be doing is I'd be asking as many questions as I could in social to allow me to start conversations to then be able to bring them across. There's almost very little need to be able to cold call. And if, for example, that you wanted to put a recruitment post out there at this moment in time, I would start a conversation far wider than this is us, please come join our team. The this is us, please come join our team, we're awesome is about as effective as you sharing, just sold artwork. It's like, look at me as opposed to come with me. What you'd be better to say is choosing a partner in real estate is important. Real estate agent friends, how did you go about deciding who to work with when you started your career in real estate? Start a conversation. And watch how much it will demonstrate empathy when behind that conversation is other agents in your feed saying, well, I just picked the person who was local with me. And to be fair, I joined a brokerage that had a friend in part of it. And I joined. And then what you can do is come behind that and ask further questions, like saying, given what you've now learned since that period of time, what advice would you give to a younger version of you? Or what advice would you give to somebody that is thinking about starting in real estate, about what to look for in a team leader or a brokerage today? You see how what we're now doing is we're creating a bigger conversation full of opportunities that then you've got fish in a barrel. You're like, you. And you're like, then, hey, love the comment that you made on the social chat. Like, how important is it to you, blank, blank, and blank? Now you get a bit of back and forth in 3 or 4 DMs, and then you turn it into, it sounds like this might be easier if we jump to a quick phone call. What's the best number to reach you at? And you watch them now reply in the DM with, here's the number. You say, well, when would be a good time for us to be able to have a proper conversation? They say anytime this evening. You say somewhere like 5:45. They say, yes, sure. Right? And now you're into a conversation. But it's about slowing the process down and allowing it to be a game of tennis. It's not what's the perfect killer post that has people saying, where do I sign? It's about saying that you're prepared to go through the messy middle to help somebody navigate what, in all extensive purposes, is a really important decision. And what you want them to be able to do is to commit to that decision, correct? You don't want them to jump at that decision because they're coming from a place of fear or their existing circumstance is terrible. You want them to come feeling confident that what they're doing is the right thing for them. So that was hopefully Becky's question there. Marcus says, how does this framework operate around a recruiting cold call, e.g. making an appointment to really employ the triangle? Well, let's look at it. Firstly, it's highly unlikely that you're going to straight up just cold call an existing agent and tell them that what they're existing doing right now is a bad idea and that life would be better with you, right? Like that's like trying to hit on somebody that's actively married and telling them that their spouse is an arsehole and that they should come and hang out with you instead, right? That's really what an outbound recruiting cold call could potentially end up looking like. What you're better to be able to do is to start more strategically curious. There are 3 keys that could open just about any door if you're looking to make outreach towards existing successful agents. And they are all better when laced with curiosity. 1 is a genuine compliment. 2 is sincere recognition. And 3 is the request for an opinion. So if I wanted to start a conversation with an existing agent, I would look for something that I could meaningfully compliment them about. And that compliment could be, I heard back from another agent friend in our team, just what a pleasure it was to be able to work with you on that transaction. I thought you'd like to hear that reputationally speaking, that you're starting to build a real brand for being a delight to work with. That could be a fair compliment, right? Try not replying to that message. Recognition could be that you've been watching them for a while and that you're super impressed by the kind of results that they're achieving and how they've managed to be able to progress in their career, or the great events they're running to support younger agents in the community, or something that you're like, hey, I see you and what you're doing is awesome and I'm impressed by it. An opinion is a pull. As a fellow experienced agent in our local community, or as an experienced fellow agent at this period of time, I'm really curious about what the future of blank is, and I'd love to just get some of your thoughts about it. And you're almost interviewing them for their opinion. And you watch how those 3 things will start you more meaningful conversations than the blind, let's meet for a coffee and talk about the market. Because we know what that is, right? No different than when you said to somebody once upon a time in your life, hey, let's meet for a drink. You weren't interested in the beverage. You were interested in something different. The same is true with most recruiting conversations. The other person knows they're going to a recruiting pitch. What you're better to do is to start the conversation around some form of common interests and then do the work to find out what's not right about their existing relationship. If you missed it earlier, 2-part questionnaire will help you do this very, very easily. The first is, what 3 things do you like best about? When you ask somebody what 3 things do you like best about your existing brokerage, your existing agent, whatever it might be, you get a very sequenced list. The first thing they tell you is the first thing they can think of. They've got 2 more goes. They just get 1 out as quick as possible. It's important, but not necessarily the most important. The second thing they share with you is almost always the most important thing. And the third thing they share is their favorite nice to have. You know, what 3 things you like best about your existing brokerage? Well, you know, I like they have a physical location and they provide training. Okay. And what else is I like the fact that I can get to work with other agents locally. So I don't feel like I'm alone. I feel I'm part of something bigger than myself. Oh, and what else is, I quite like the colors in the branding. I feel good to be a part of it. Okay. It then allows you to ask the third question, the next question, sorry, which if there was one thing you could change about them, what would the one thing be? And what they now do is they tell you the truth. You know what, they've been good for a good time, but I feel like I'm maxing out at capacity and I keep getting dragged back into training newer agents and helping support other things as their team grows. That really doesn't provide any reward for me. And I'm busier than I ever wanted to be and don't see any capacity to earn any more money. Gotcha. And your little inside voice wants to think, well, we're pretty good at those 3 things. And guess what? We got a viable solution towards the one thing that's causing you some discomfort. When they give you the one thing that's causing you some discomfort, stay there for a while. Easiest way to be able to stay there for a while is how often do you find yourself plugging into trainings and running non-income producing events and activities that service the brokerage but don't service your future? They're like, I don't know, I mean, once, twice a week, certainly 5, 6 times a month. Gotcha. And how long has that been going on for? Is that a new thing? No, it's been happening for the last 2, 3, 4 years. Okay. Do you see that changing anytime soon? No, I guess not. Not without me upsetting somebody. Do you love doing that, or would you rather be doing something different? Oh, I'd much rather be doing something different. See how if we stay there for a while, we can get them to convince themselves that what they're currently doing is a pretty darn stupid idea. Therefore, they are now open to consider alternatives. So that's what I'd maybe jam on from a cold calling point of view. How do you get a home seller to certainty on my fee structure commission? Galaxy S21 5G. That's a cool name. That's a cool name. Is that person here? That person could open microphone so we can just maybe jam on that a little.
Yeah, right here.
Hey, do you have a real name or is that your real name?
My name's Rick. Thanks.
Hey, good to see you, Rick. Rick, tell me some more about this. What's the friction? What's the pushback?
So the friction is the home seller says, everything you're saying is sounding great, but gosh, and I'm going to make up a number here because I don't want to steer anybody. That 6% is really kind of, I think it should be done for cheaper.
Ah, okay. And what makes you come to that kind of conclusion?
Well, I just see that, there are other options out there that do it for less.
Okay. And have you seen another option that you'd like to work with?
Not yet. No, the other people that I've been talking to just are really not responsive and they're holding bad open houses. And when I went to their open house, actually, they didn't even talk to me.
Okay. So you're not considering any of those inferior options?
Well, I'm still going to be interviewing around trying to find one of those options that'll work for me.
Okay. Now answer me this. Do you want to sell your house cheaply or would you like to sell it right?
Sell it right.
Okay. And is there anything about what we've presented to you that doesn't demonstrate that this is a professional operation providing a professional service that could deliver professional results?
Yeah, you've done a very good job.
Okay. And how important is it to you that you sell your home for the maximum money and that the process is as seamless as possible?
I'd say it's very important.
Okay. And yeah, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like it needs to happen and 1 being that you're kind of interested.
9 or 10.
Okay. And what are the potential consequences of you hiring a discount agent as opposed to working with a professional?
Well, I suppose I might not get the price I want.
Okay. And what else?
Might not get the service.
Okay. And do you want the price and the service?
Yeah, those are very important to me.
Okay. And you also want somebody that is strong enough to stand up to holding a fee?
Yeah, but I'm still, that's 6%.
Okay. So have you seen somebody that is offering a lower price that still appears to offer some form of a professional service?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So we're looking for a miracle.
Suppose so.
Now I'm here right now. You're here right now. I want to sell your house and you want to sell your house, correct?
Correct.
And we're keen to be able to get this moving as quick as possible.
Yeah, and we're going to be done with all the renovations in about a week or two.
Okay. So the time to get moving on this is now.
Suppose so.
Do you love interviewing potential agents? Is that something that's a hobby of yours?
Great question. No.
Gotcha. Okay. So we could just get to work on this right now. But what I'm hearing from you is that you're just looking for the best possible deal. You want to be able to drive a hard bargain and to do the best you can to know that you're getting the best deal you could get from me.
Sure.
Cool. So I'll tell you what I can do for you is, given the fact that you're going to make a quick decision on this right now, given the fact that we've got capacity to be able to really promote your home properly right now, then what we'll do for you is we're going to provide you the very best A team on your open house support. You're going to get a level of marketing support on this home that we would normally only reserve for those that are a slightly premier level, and that you're going to have my personal attention all the way throughout to make sure that every question, every step up along the way is something you've got my personal support for. Does that sound fair?
Love it. Thank you so much. That was great.
We can play these all day long.
He makes it easy, doesn't he? Bill, we're at the top of the hour. I know your time is precious, especially because this is a personal day that you took time out to spend with us. And Renee and I are incredibly grateful. This is, and we've been exposed to you for quite some time now, and I'm still always learning and I'm still always taking it in. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to send out your link. For those of y'all that want more of Phil, what would you say? Obviously, you have your books available on Audible. I listen to it all the time, and Amazon. We're going to send these links in Workplace. Phil, you have events that are coming up as well. Is there anything you want to share that we want to make sure that they're aware of coming? Yeah,
soon? I mean, what I would say is if you have team and you want books, make sure you come through us direct and you can get some bulk discounts and you can help with a little video plug, etc., etc. So we love to know that's you. So come via philmjones.com. I put my Instagram up on screen there too. So if there's questions that you want to ask of me, come follow on Insta, come ask me questions there. That's the one platform that I show up personally on. And we do some certification events. So Renee's here is one of our certified guides. We have a team of certified guides that run full experiences going deep on the curriculum of exactly what to say. And I host a couple of those personally in New York City every single year. So I run 4 small group masterminds, which is where Elizabeth and I have met twice with her, and then with Wes coming back as well. So if you'd like to know more about how you could join any of those small group masterminds, then again, shoot me a note on Insta. I'll share with you those links, etc. there directly. They are small groups, 16 people. So I think I have 2 spaces left in November, a couple of spots left for February and April, and that's possibly all we're going to do over the next 12 months.
They're pretty impactful, y'all. It's definitely a game changer. So Phil, we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Renee, any parting words?
I would say everyone go out and also follow Exactly What to Say on Instagram.
Yeah.
There's lots of great content from all of the guides and Phil. And thank you, Phil, so much for sharing time with us. Get the book, everybody. Keep it with you. This is in our bag at all time. It is a perfect size and it becomes a great resource for your business. So thank you, Phil M. Jones. We appreciate you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks all for playing along today. I appreciate you all. Have a great
to
rest
see
Y'all have an
you.
amazing weekend.
EXP
Bill.
Family Tree.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you.